Hey there crew, it's Mark. In today's video, we're going to be checking out some items from Temu. I get so many comments on my videos, especially with things that are a little bit more expensive that say, I could get that off of Temu for a few dollars. You paid $85 for that pen, or you paid $60 for that notebook. They've got it on there for less. But my question has always been, is it actually worth it? So I got the chance to shop on Temu and try out a handful of things. We're going to be breaking this video up into three main parts. The first part is going to be about paper and notebooks, checking out some of the items I picked up. We'll talk about price and quality, and we'll be doing pen tests on those as well. I also picked up some fountain pens because I hear so many comments from you all, like I could get that off of Temu for less. So I've got two that we can try out to see if they hold up against the more expensive pens, and also some accessories too. We got stamps, some cases, just to mix in a handful of different things. So the first thing we're going to check out today is going to be this 500-page graph paper notebook. Now I'll use notebook lightly with this. There is no back cover, there is no front cover. It's just 500 pieces of top glue bound B5 size paper. At first touch, this feels very thin. From a stationery standpoint, I can see this being very helpful for sketching, kind of trying things out real quick, maybe some stamps and things like that. But to really know the quality of the paper, we have to put it up against the pen test, so that's exactly what we did. So I grabbed some of the most popular items that I have in my collection just to put it up against the gamut. What's all here? We have everything up here from markers and mild liners, gel pens, regular pens. I've tried stamps, different types, as well as an ink swatch down here as well. You can go ahead and pull out this page, also to see how well things pull out. Well, it rips pretty not great. One of the things I like to pay attention to with my pen test, especially with markers, to see how they hold up. Now this paper being very thin, I knew that it was going to be. It felt very thin. We already see some ghosting and ever slight bleed through happening on this paper here, even with the markers. Now a lot of these pens did really well. Some of the pens that I like to include in here for this specific pen test reason have to do with like the Baron Fig, the Lamy as a fountain pen option here, and even some of these gel pens to see how well they hold up or not. The gel pens all did great, but as we start to move down a bit more, especially into the Baron Fig, which tend to be a lot inkier than all the other pens, you do start to see some of that come through here. Not only did it come through on the paper here, but we also see some little ink marks here from where those pens bled through onto the next page here. We have a number of different stamps here, everything from pre-inked ones. We also have our click stamps over here with some different colors, as well as an acrylic one we put on ink and then onto this paper. And we also did an ink swatch over here too to see. Everything on here, you can see the ghost of what is on that previous page, and then the ink, as I would expect to, completely bled through the page, but only went through to the next page. So we didn't get like crazy saturation here, but honestly, enough that I wouldn't be doing any type of ink swatches in this paper. But to be honest, when you have 500 sheets of paper, I was not expecting super high quality paper. There was actually nothing in the descriptions that really told me otherwise. So definitely looking at this and seeing this, this is your scrap pieces of paper. This is where you're testing things out and not worrying if things go into the other page, because really this is just ideas that are coming out before you take them into a higher quality paper or even a higher quality journal. All right, the next one we're gonna be taking a look at here is another B5 notebook. However, this one does have a nice cover on top of it. It's a executive matte black hardcover notebook. Even though this isn't really hardcover, I would say this would be more soft cover than not. We have 250 pages, which is 128 sheets of paper. We also got this in a white grid instead. I would say, comparing paper to paper here, this paper feels just a little bit higher quality than this paper does here. This is like thinner than a paper bag, honestly, and because of the craft paper, it really kind of exemplifies that for this paper. This feels a little bit better. I wouldn't say that this is thick by any means. I did do a pen test in the back of this notebook here with all the same items that we did on top of the craft paper that's here. So we have our markers, our mild liners, all the different pens and stamps as well. So when we do our flip over here, you'll see everything is ghosting through. I don't know that we got any bleed through, but it's hard to tell because I didn't have another sheet of paper over here. This ink swatch though didn't do terrible. Like compared to what we saw with this craft paper, it actually held on pretty good. You have a lot of the same likely suspects with like the Baron Fig pens, for instance, that are very inky. Even some of these over here with the Sharpie rollerball pens came through a bit more, and all of these stamps did as well. So this would definitely be the type of notebook where you would do something on one page and then not put anything on the opposite page, because you wouldn't really be able to see anything that's on here just because of any type of pens that you might be using. This I can see is a better quality than a research and development journal. We have a little bit more options here. I think that stamps and other things would actually show up really well on this paper. paper. Maybe even doing some writing and pen test inside of here would work out well. For $8.68 for a B5 sized notebook with a cover and some pretty decent pages, I actually think is a pretty good price. This could work out very well as a journal. You just have to be careful about the pens that you're using. There's no page numbers or anything already dated in here, so you could just have a lot of fun, use it for notes or kind of whatever you wanted to. Now, just for $1 and change more, I went from a B5 size up to an A4 grid paper. This is very similar to it. We have the grid pages on the inside. They are not as bright white as these are here, but I'm looking more for size than anything else. This has 256 pages, so 128 sheets inside of here. If I'm comparing the paper here, this feels just a little bit more coated than this one does here. This one actually feels like a little bit of a step above this other grid paper that we have here, but not as nice as the paper that we just looked at inside of this B5. This is massive in size, and again, what are we using this for? Well, I'm not quite sure yet. I think this could work really well for swatches and stamps, really anything that you wanted to if you were looking for like a big size. But let's check out how the pen swatch and ink swatches did in the back. So a lot more space for things on this page. Honestly, I really like the size of this one. I think you could do a lot of ideation and kind of big ideas. You could certainly turn it sideways and kind of sketch out any ideas that you might have for things, maybe bullet journal page layouts or anything like that. But we have to see how the pen test did first. Again, all the same items that we have here. And if we give our page a flip, we'll see that this one actually did a little bit worse than the previous notebook that we did. Like I said, I really do think that this paper is probably coated a little bit more, maybe a little bit better quality. While we still see some of the inks coming through here, I feel like they're very prevalent here. We still did see some of the ghosting and a little bit of bleed through that's happening in a number of spots, mostly with the more inkier pens. But it actually held up a lot better than I thought that it was going to. I was nervous that this was going to be similar to that craft paper, but it did okay. So I feel like this would be great for ideas. You have large sketching ideas for notes or whatever you might need. And for $9.93, not that bad for a big, huge notebook. So one of the main things I really wanted to compare Temu with is other types of notebooks, specifically A5s or things that we would use as a bullet journal. They have a lot of different types of notebooks, and this one is called Buke. This is the Elephant Bullet Dot Journal. 160 GSM thick cream paper on the inside. This notebook was $11.11, which if you compare it to other 160 GSM notebooks out there, that is very inexpensive. We have what looks like a faux leather cover, and we have this elephant that's imprinted on here, and that grain goes all the way through. We do have an elastic band. We have a pen holder on here. We open this up. We also have two very thin page holders, but go all the way down to the edge of the page. And we also have page numbers down here as well. We have our nameplate here, and then if we flip, we're gonna open right up to our first page here, number 1, with the dot grid that's on here. The dot grid on here looks to be 5mm throughout as we're going through. Definitely a nicer, better paper quality than everything else that we've checked out so far. Does lay flat if we need to, which is really nice. We also have the pocket in the back here. So very standard to a lot of our other journals that we've seen out, and definitely ones that I use as well. So I did the same pen test here. Again, this is an A5 size, so the layout looks a little bit different, but all the same materials are on here. So remember, this is 160 GSM paper. So compared to our other notebooks out there, I would expect it to do very well. It definitely did better than all the other ones that we've looked at. You do have ghosting, but you have zero bleed through on everything, even on the ink swatch that we did over here that bled through all the other papers so far, which again were less superior paper to 160 GSM. Did pretty good. You do see the ghosting happening, like I said, with some of these stamps, but it's not the worst thing in the world, especially comparing it to some of the other ones. So I actually think that this isn't that bad of an idea. So I'd actually say for $11, this is pretty incredible. So if you're on a budget or you just don't want to spend a lot of money on notebooks, like this could actually be a pretty good option for you. It actually has a really nice design. It feels really good as well. I like the color of the paper and the page numbers, the dot grid, kind of has it all. So along with their notebooks, I also wanted to check out some things closer to like a planner or like a loose leaf type deal, and this one caught my eye. The description of this one is pretty generic. 9-hole B5 hollow PU leather loose leaf notebook. It comes in a bunch of different colors. I actually love that the rings come through here. I think from a design standpoint, that looks really cool. This has a really nice soft touch to it. This itself came with this notebook paper. I don't know very much about this paper. There wasn't a whole lot of descriptions for it itself. It was more about the notebook, but it's definitely thin. You can actually see what's on the other side through the front of this paper without even writing on it here. But it does have all the 9 holes, so you could easily put this inside of your notebooks. So for the binder and this paper that's inside, it was $11.98. Relatively inexpensive. There was a back sheet in here and like a plastic cover here. I don't know if you would use that in between pages. Potentially, if you wanted to clip it in between your pages here so things didn't bleed through the other page, that would probably be how I would use it, knowing that the paper so far hasn't been great. Because I'm not a lined bullet journal planner type of person, I personally really like grid or dot grid paper. I did pick up B5 loose leaf paper. This is 9-hole. This is the dot grid that's on top of here. So this was $8.57 for this paper. It's got 80 sheets. And personally, I feel like I would use this a lot more than the lined paper that's here. I had to do a pen test because I wanted to see how well this worked compared to everything else that we've looked at. Again, there weren't any real descriptions for the quality of this paper on any of this. Compared to the other notebooks, this paper feels about the same quality as this other B5 one that we tried out that did pretty well. We go and flip her over, we'll actually see that this paper did better than this. Wow, this is pretty surprising actually. Even that Baron Fig pen did not come through the other side. You can see it's darker here. This marker one did a little bit, and even the ink swatch, not terrible. These stamps definitely came through a lot less on this paper compared to this paper here too. So even though I felt like this was pretty good quality, this paper actually ended up being a lot better. So similar to a lot of the other notebooks that I've mentioned, this would be one of those R&D notebooks. And for me personally, because I don't love the rings over here on the left-hand side since I'm a lefty, I would just turn this notebook to the side, and then I have a really nice just open page that I can use here for notes and details. You could most certainly use this as a bullet journal if you wanted to, honestly. You're just filling in your own pages. You have these holes and clips so that if you wanted to move stuff around that you could. It looks really nice, at least compared to the other ones that we checked out today too. And the fact that the paper did as well as it did. Like, I'm really surprised about this. Makes me feel like this is a really good option or choice when it comes to notebooks. So I was going to put these in order of best to worst when it comes to paper. I would definitely start off with the A5 dot grid notebook that we saw here, 160 GSM paper. It held up best to all of the pen tests that we did and even stamps, and while we had some ghosting, we didn't see any bleed through. The B5 loose leaf note paper, I was really surprised about. I honestly thought that the paper was going to be crap inside of here, but specifically the dot grid paper that we bought separately from this did amazing. I would assume the paper for it would be somewhat similar, but it's hard to tell because it's probably different manufacturers. I have absolutely no idea, but I would most certainly and will most definitely be using this notebook for myself. And then the last one has to be this big, huge 500 sheet craft grid paper. I feel like you should know that if you're buying a really large quantity of things, you're not going to get any real quality of product. It really is just the paper, top glue bound. Honestly, I see this as very just use it, tear it off, throw it away, and I would be okay with that. From a value standpoint of what we saw so far from the notebooks and the papers and things like that, I feel like you're kind of getting what you're paying for. And in many cases, I feel like these are not super savings with like better quality, if you get what I mean. You know, sometimes you have to pay a higher price to get better quality items. That's how it is. If I think about going to a big box store, they might have something that I want, but a lot of the times their notebooks tend to be lined. And if you're looking for dot grid paper, you're not really kind of making out at the end of the day. And sometimes those prices can be higher for that. And you're kind of giving up what you want just because it's right there in front of you. So something like that notebook could be great. And again, the other ones, I see them as just really great, inexpensive notebooks that I can use for any different types of ideas. All right, so the last thing I want to share with you for the paper section here is something that I plan on using for ink swatches because this was perfect. So this is 4 pieces. So we've got 4 of these individual packs, $5.33, and the paper is perfect for this. So each one comes with a ring, and then you can just attach each one of these small pieces to your ring to create whatever you want. You could use this for notes. You could use this for what I'm going to use it for, which is ink swatches. Now, the one thing they don't tell you about in the description is that one side of this is kind of more glossier than the other side is over here. So I did 2 of the same colors on here to see what happens. I'll tell you, regardless of the side, the pens take a little bit longer to dry, and I just left the inks alone. Personally, I like the way that the ink swatch looked on the non-glossy side. Just think it looked better just overall and how it went. But this side isn't terrible. But when I did more swatches on the non-glossy side, I really just decided, yeah, I really like the way that they look a lot better. The next section we're going to focus on is going to be pens. And this was really important to me to try these out because very often on a lot of my videos that talk about fountain pens, you'll get the comments that say, okay, well that pen cost you $80. I could get that off of Temu for $3 or for $5 or whatever it might be. So it always had me a little bit curious to say, well, why would a brand sell something for so much more if you can get it somewhere else for so much less? And is the quality going to be exactly the same? And the best way to figure that out is to try it yourself. So we have 2 different fountain pens that we're going to try. And then I also have a really nice fine like needlepoint pen that I got. Actually got a whole bunch of them inside of here, which I'm excited to try. But let's go ahead and start with the fountain pens first. So this one actually caught my eye first because of the color. And you really can't tell much about it in the descriptions. It really just says a versatile metal fountain pen. But when I got it in my hands, I was like, ooh, it has this cool like matte finish to it. Now this pen came in an option for a 0.38mm tip, which is like this awesome like needle point tip that's here. This pen itself was $2.99. So when we're talking about spending a lot of money for something like that versus something a lot less, I think this perfectly fits into that description. The top part of this pen is nice metal. It's not made out of plastic. And then inside it comes with a converter already. This is kind of your everyday standard converter that we see in a lot of different pens. Now, one thing that I didn't get as a part of this purchase was any fountain pen inks. I honestly felt like there was not a lot to really choose from, and I already have so many beautiful inks back here. We're just gonna use just a nice black ink to fill these pens up and try them out to see how well they do. With something like this extra fine fountain pen, we're talking very fine tip here versus the other ones. You wanna make sure that you do not use any type of glitter, shimmer, nothing inside of here because it will clog this pen up in a second. So we're just going to use a straight black ink that we have. We'll do the same thing we always do. Put our nib inside of the pen and we'll draw that ink up. Go ahead and clean off the tip of our pen here. Go ahead and screw the body back on. This pen does post, so we can put that right on there. Let's go ahead and give it a write and see how well it works. Color me impressed. Color me blue and orange impressed. This pen is really nice. It writes really well, there's no skipping. The weight of it feels really light as well. So when you're talking about trying out fountain pens and you're not quite sure what you want to do, here's actually a really great $2.99 option for you to get up and running. I feel a little bad saying that because I respect so many of the pen makers out there, and it's not to say that they're not great. But if you are really just starting to get into fountain pens or trying them out, you don't want to spend a whole lot of money just yet, this is a great option. It looks very cool. It writes really well. I think the only thing that I'm seeing a little bit is that my sweaty palms and greasy fingers are showing up on here a little bit more than they would obviously with a different type of material. But overall, I think this is really nice pen. Of course, time will tell how well this actually works in the long run, but as of right now, I'm liking it. All right, the next pen that we got here is a fashionable transparent automatic sealing pen in transparent black. Now, if you are a pen fan, you will say, Mark, this looks extremely similar to the Curados pen from Platinum, and it absolutely does. And it's honestly the reason that I bought it, because I have 2 of those pens that I really like using. They are a retractable pen, so you can see here that you just push the bottom of this pen to click the nib out. It stays out while you're writing with it, and then you click it again for it to retract back inside and your ink's not drying up or anything. Now, one of the main difference between the Curados pen and this one here is that this clip is not removable. So you do have to keep this on here as you're writing with it. The other thing I noticed too is that you do have to push a little extra hard down here to get that pen to click out. The Curados, you just kind of press real quick and it comes out. This one, you do have to give that extra press to. If we take this pen apart, we'll really see how close it is, because this, I think, is where it starts to make all the difference. So the first thing I'll see here is that the way that you fill this pen is with, and I really do not love these fillers, but it is what it is. You have one that's inside of here. It also does not look like you can actually take this pen apart, versus the other one, the full mechanism comes out here and then you can fill this up and put it back in. So to a certain extent, not being able to take this pen apart is a good thing. I've messed up my other pens that come apart all the way because you put it back together the wrong way, but it doesn't make filling this pen very easily. With the other one, you can take it apart, stick the nib in your ink and draw it up. With this one, we're gonna have to dip or put the entire cartridge here inside of the ink, draw it up inside of here first, and then put it together on the pen. This isn't the worst thing in the entire world, because there's definitely other pens that you have to do this on. I'm just spoiled in that I like that I can just draw the ink right up inside of my pen. It's coming through the feed and filling that way. Just want to make sure that that is all the way in there, because there really isn't anything to screw it into or hold it in place, because as soon as you press it down, the spring starts to move, so you don't have that. So on this one specifically, I can press on the back, not on this piece right here. That would shoot the ink out the other side. Let's not do that. Go ahead and screw the cap back on here. Make sure that we're working, and we are. And let's go ahead and give it a pen test and see how well it works. So similar to the other ones, this writes really nice. I got an extra fine nib on this one, so you do get that really nice fine print on here. However, I will just say this is a little uncomfortable with this clip here. Usually with my other pens, I take that off because of how I like to hold my pen, but you do just have to position it. This barrel also is a lot bigger than some of the other pens too, but it's the style of the pen. Again, time will tell how well this holds up with the clicks, with the ink, with the nibs, and kind of all of the other pieces, making sure that that converter doesn't leak, all the things that could potentially happen. But honestly, that can also happen with other fountain pens too. It's not only inexpensive pens, but sometimes you just gotta be a little curious about it to see. So like I've said before, if you are just getting into fountain pens or want to try them out and not spend a whole lot of money, this could potentially be the pen for you. All right, the last thing that we're going to check out in the pen section is this 10-pack. This is straight liquid ballpoint pen, quick drying, test signature neutral 0.5 millimeter black. Super long name to say needlepoint black pens. You want to talk about a deal? I got 10 of these pens for $2.43. Now, one thing I did notice right as I started to pull these out, a lot of this ink looks like it's already kind of coming out a little bit on here. Not all of them, but some. So just something, again, that I'm just noticing as we're taking a look at it that we might need to pay attention to. But let's go ahead and see how well they write. Can't be mad at it. It writes really nice. And I love precision pens, and this is very precision-y. I am a little bit worried though, because I do see a lot of ink both in the cap as well as around the pen. So this is just one of those pens where I feel like you really have to watch out for, especially if you're keeping it uncapped, or even if you do, you might want to have it in a pencil case or on its own a little bit, just in case it leaks. Again, I've only had this just for a handful of minutes, so I can't tell you the longevity of this, but I am going to clean these out and kind of give them a real chance. I do like the way they write on this paper. It reminds me very much of some of my favorite needlepoint pens, but this just makes me a little bit nervous. I gotta say, a lot of you that leave those comments that say like you can get good quality pens on Temu for like a few bucks. I don't think that you're wrong by any means. It's hard for me to say because I have a very large pen collection, but I have an affinity for certain brands and looks and liking that too. That's not to knock what you can get off of Temu. And if these hold up to the time of using them over and over again and we don't get any leaking or they don't stop working randomly, then they're definitely a viable option. And when you get 10 of them for under $3, I don't think that you can expect much more from them, honestly. All right, the last thing we're gonna go through today are gonna be some accessories. I only have 3 of them to go through, but I wanted to check out some of the other options from Temu along with the pens and the paper, where I personally spend a lot of my time. I think that was really important, but I also like to take a look at some other things. So the first thing we're gonna take a look at here is going to be a clear stamp. There was a pretty decent collection of these online, honestly. This was just called Decorative Birds Clear Silicone Stamp. I thought they looked kind of fun. They were not just your standard birds that we were going to be taking a look at. We've got 9 stamps on here, and these were $2.12. I probably should have checked out an ink pad while I was there too, but I'm not going to lie to you. I just like using what I like to use. And there are some fine details inside of here, so let's go ahead and see how they work. So these are going to be like any of your standard rubber acrylic stamps that you buy out there. It'll be a little hard to talk about longevity with these and how long they stay sticky because I just got them. But from a design standpoint, these are looking pretty cool. From the way that these feel compared to like a more expensive stamp, for instance, is they definitely feel like ones you would just get from the craft store. There's nothing extra fancy about these, and for $2 and change, I honestly wouldn't expect it. But I'm really excited about the designs that are on here. And there were definitely other options too, like it wasn't just birds on there, so you could really find anything you're looking for. So I would compare this to getting something from a clearance section inside of a craft store or something like that. And they stamp really well, not seeing any kind of breaks in anything. They look like they're gonna hold up okay. So I'm excited to use these instead of my bullet journal soon. Along with the craft stuff, I also wanted to see if there was anything that was a little bit more functional for my desk space. So there was this mechanical timer that was inside of here, and I thought, oh, this might be cool to have, especially for me, because I like to time box things and remind myself of them. So this doesn't take any batteries or anything, which was something that really rung out to me when I saw it. It was $5.56. It does say that it's magnetic, so I could stick this to a metal, a desk, if I wanted to, my refrigerator. And technically, I guess it's more of a kitchen timer than anything else, but we'll see. So the instructions are pretty simple. You're gonna put it on 0, which it's here. Next, it says you must first turn to 55 and then return it to your target time. So all you do is you just turn on this part here, you hit like crank up. We're gonna take it to 55, and then we're gonna pull it back to like 2 minutes. Now, one thing that I'm not excited listening to this is I can hear it ticking, which personally I think might drive me a little crazy to have on my desk, but some people might find that to be soothing. There is a bell inside of here, so let's see what that sounds like. So it sounds like your run-of-the-mill old school alarm clock, which will definitely get your attention if you need it. So we'll try it on the desk and see how well it works. Again, a little bit nervous about the ticky part of it, but we'll see if it bothers me or not in the long run. Again, $5.56. Put it wherever I want. Use it here or in the kitchen. Could be pretty cool. All right, so this had a very specific purpose. I don't usually just buy display cases for no reason, but I was looking for something to store more of my wood stamps in because the holder that I have for them right now isn't great. Now in the picture, it was such a good picture, I didn't notice that this was closed as it was displaying something. So we'll see kind of how this looks, but I was expecting to kind of hold it up kind of vertical like this, or I could even do it vertically like this if I want to. And my idea is that it could hold on to these clear block stamps so I can just see them a lot better. I have this thing where if I can't see it, I forget that it exists, and especially when I have what essentially is a stationery store in my studio, I like to have things displayed pretty nicely. So I really could do them either way if I wanted to. I could also, instead of going vertical with it, I could do horizontal. Honestly, I think for me, it's all going to be depending on how this looks, but I could close it if I want to and just have it there and kind of take it around with me. Not that I would really travel with something like this, but if you needed it for something, you could, and then just open it up whenever I needed it. This was $7, and I feel like a pretty good price for a nice acrylic box. Seems to be doing pretty good, so you'll probably see this in my background as I use it more. So this is everything that we got as a part of this Temu experience. Taking a look and using all of these items definitely gave me a much better idea on what to expect when purchasing things from companies like Temu, for instance. Like I said earlier with the paper, I think it is very much has to do with the quality that you're looking at. And if you are looking for something specific, I think you just have to do your research and really make sure you're getting exactly what you want. Not to keep coming back to it, but I thought that my 500 pack of paper was going to be much better quality than it was, especially considering that it was $16 for this versus an A5 notebook with 128 pages for $9.93. I'm definitely going to be using this, don't get me wrong. There will not be any waste to any of the products that I got today, but I think if you're going to really try to figure out exactly what you need, make sure you're paying attention to that quality. Of all the things I'm most interested in are definitely seeing the longevity of these fountain pens and how well they hold up. For pens under $5, they look really nice. They look really cool. They function really cool. Is it gonna hold up? Is the quality going to be the same? The longevity versus the other pens too, when you're paying so little. So it's something I'll definitely be paying attention to. And I can say honestly, after going through this, any anxiety I had around purchasing from Temu is kind of gone. I think it definitely has its place in the market, especially if you're looking for things that are inexpensive or you want to dabble in something before going all in. You can buy a pen for under $4 and use it and see how you like using fountain pens as a whole. And if you really do and you fall in love with that, you can always go and look for higher quality or maybe different brand names instead if you want to. But that's enough about me. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on purchasing stationery from Temu if you've done it before or from different sites as well? Is it worth its buck? Have you found value in things or really just felt like you're getting what you're paying for? Let me know down in the comment section below. We love chatting down there and sharing our stories. My friends, I will talk to you next time. See ya.